Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the most important tools for your financial security, the emergency fund. This is the bedrock, the financial cushion that protects you from all those unexpected curveballs life throws your way. And we're going to break down exactly how you can build and maintain one.
So let's just kick things off with a pretty direct question. If a surprise bill for $1,700 showed up tomorrow, could you handle it? I mean, really handle it, without swiping a credit card or borrowing from someone. Just take a second and think about that. Because you know that $1,700, it's not just some random number I pulled out of a hat. It's actually a really important benchmark for what it means to be financially ready today.
And here's the wild part. According to a Lending Club study, that's the average emergency expense people are facing right now. And that number? It shot up 16% in just 1 year. So life's little surprises? They're not so little anymore, and they're definitely getting more expensive.
Now, what this chart shows us is a pretty huge gap between how much emergencies are costing us and how prepared we actually are. A recent Bankrate report found that, while almost half of Americans have a decent 3-month fund, a full quarter, that's 1 in 4, have no savings at all. They're living right on the financial edge.
But look, this is about so much more than just paying a bill. It's about buying yourself something you literally can't put a price on, peace of mind. Having that safety net dramatically lowers your financial stress, and that, right there, is a huge win for your overall well-being.
Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to cover why this is so important, what actually counts as a real emergency, how to figure out your perfect fund size, that classic debt versus savings debate, a 6-step action plan to get you started, and finally, where you should park your cash.
All right, Section 1, peace of mind is priceless. Let's really dig into the why here, how this one fund manages to protect both your wallet and your mental health at the same time.
Vanguard has this absolutely brilliant analogy for this. They say, having just a couple $1,000s in cash you can get to immediately feels as good as having $1 million tied up somewhere you can't touch. It's like having water in the desert. When you're in a crisis, that accessible cash is everything.
And this is a huge mental shift you have to make. An emergency fund is not an investment you're trying to grow. It's an insurance policy. When you're panicking about money, you make bad decisions. But having that fund ready to go, it lifts that weight. And your brain can switch from, oh my God, how am I going to pay for this, to a much calmer, okay, what's the smartest way to solve this problem?
All right, Section 2. So we've got the why down. Now let's get really clear on the what. What exactly is an emergency fund for? And maybe more importantly, what is it not for? We need rules.
I want you to think of it like your personal financial first aid kit. It's not a fun money account. Its one and only job is to stop the bleeding when an unexpected life event hits, so a little setback doesn't turn into a complete catastrophe. And to make it work, you have to be disciplined. A true emergency is losing your job, getting a surprise medical bill, or your car breaking down when you need it to get to work. It is absolutely not for planned things like vacations, holiday shopping, or a down payment on a house. Those goals need their own separate savings buckets.
So before you ever think about touching this money, you have to run it through this simple 2-question test. First, is it urgent? Like, can it absolutely not wait? And second, are the consequences severe if you don't pay it? We're talking risk of losing your home, your job, your health. If you can't say yes to both, it's not a real emergency.
Section 3, calculating your ideal fund size. Okay, here it is, the big one. The question everyone wants to know. How much money do I actually need to save? Let's figure out your number. We're going to approach this in 2 phases, which makes it way less intimidating. Step 1 is just to get a $1,000 starter fund. That's it. It's an achievable goal, it gives you a huge psychological win, and it stops those little emergencies from putting you in the debt. Then, once you have that, you move on to the big goal, 3 to 6 months of your essential living expenses.
And here's a super important point. Your final goal is not based on your income. It's based on your bare bones survival budget. So you need to add up just the essentials: your housing, utilities, food, transportation, insurance. All the wants, like restaurants, Netflix, that gym membership, they don't count for this calculation.
Now, this is where we move past the generic advice and make it personal. It all comes down to your personal risk. If you're a couple with 2 stable paychecks and you rent, 3 months might be totally fine. But if you're self-employed, have a mortgage, and a couple of kids depending on you, your risk is higher, and you should probably shoot for 6, maybe even 9 months of expenses.
Okay, Section 4. Let's tackle what is probably the biggest mental roadblock for so many people, that constant tug of war between saving for an emergency and wanting to obliterate your high-interest debt.
I get it. On paper, the math is just painful. Why would you put money in a savings account that's earning, say, 4% when you have credit card debt that's costing you 20%? I mean, every single dollar you put towards that debt is like getting a guaranteed 20% return. Mathematically, it feels like saving is the dumb move. But this is where you need a powerful reframe. Stop thinking of your emergency fund as a bad investment. Think of it as the premium you pay for an insurance policy against financial ruin. It's not about getting the best return, it's about managing your risk.
So here is the battle plan that actually solves this conflict. It's a 3-phase approach. Phase 1, just focus on getting that $1,000 starter fund. Stop the bleeding. Phase 2, pause saving and go all in on attacking your high-interest debt. Get it gone. And then Phase 3, once that debt is out of your life, you go back and finish building your emergency fund to your full, personalized goal.
Section 5, your 6-step action plan. Okay, we have the why, we have the how much. Now let's get practical. Let's turn all this motivation into actual action. Step 1 for everything is always knowing where your money is actually going. You've got to do an expense audit. A framework like this 50-30-20 budget can be a huge help. It forces you to categorize your spending and see exactly how much you can carve out for that 20% savings slice.
So here's your playbook, step by step. You do that audit to find the cash. You create your phased savings plan, starter fund first, then the full fund. You build a budget to make it happen. You throw any surprise money, like a tax refund or a bonus, straight at your goal. You automate the whole process, and, this is key, if you have to use the fund, your top priority becomes filling it back up again.
Now, if you only take one single tactic away from this entire explainer, please let it be this one. Automate your savings. Seriously. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings account for the day you get paid. You pay yourself first. This takes willpower completely out of the equation, and it is the single most effective thing you can do to guarantee you'll hit your goal. All right, Section 6. We are in the home stretch. The last piece of this puzzle is deciding where to actually keep your cash. And this is a strategic decision, not just an afterthought. The account you choose has to check 3 non-negotiable boxes. 1, liquidity. You need to get to your money fast without penalties. 2, safety. It has to be FDIC or NCUA insured. And 3, yield. You want it to earn some interest to at least try and keep up with inflation. So here are your top 3 choices. A high-yield savings account typically gives you the best interest rate while still being insured. A money market account might give you a debit card for easier access. And a money market mutual fund could earn a little more. But, and this is a big but, it is not FDIC insured. So there's a trade-off there. But let's just cut to the chase. For the vast majority of people, the high-yield savings account, or HYSA, is the perfect tool for this job. It hits that sweet spot of government-insured safety and a really competitive interest rate. It's the standard recommendation for a reason.
And one final important thought, your Roth IRA. Yeah, you can technically pull out your contributions, but please think of this as the absolute last resort. It's the backup to your backup. When you raid your retirement, you are giving up decades of potential tax-free growth. So only even consider it after your main emergency fund is completely empty.
So, we end right back where we started. The next emergency isn't a question of if, it's a question of when. Building this fund is without a doubt one of the most powerful steps you can take toward a life with less stress and more financial confidence. The journey starts with that first dollar. So the only question left is, what are you going to do today to get started?